The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest today is Warden Brian Milne of Grey County. Now, Warden Milne is no stranger to this show, and I'm trust no stranger to you, but hey, we've got some things to talk about.
Excellent.
And Brian, good to see you again.
It's good to be here. Thank you for the invitation, David. It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
You had a good summer, I take it.
It was a good summer. Yes, indeed it was. Although I have to admit, it was a tough summer to get dry hay.
Very true. Very true.
It's not the best crop I've got in the barn, but the barn's full. There was lots of it, and it's amazing what looks green in January, so maybe the cattle will be all right with it anyway.
Well, yeah, sometimes they can't be too choosy, can they?
No, that's right.
That's right. How's the corn looking down there?
Good. Really good. Yeah. There's lots of silage has come off so far. Nobody's into the field with the combine yet, but there's lots of corn come off, and boy, the crop looks great. A lot of soybeans have come off, and I'm told the yields are really good on the soybeans as well.
Well, that's good to hear, because I've on my commute to work in Durham, I see lots of fields that one day are soybeans ready to go, and next thing you know, they're gone.
They're gone. Yep, that's right. The markets have maybe reflected the abundance of crop, because the prices are definitely off from what they've been the last few years.
So surplus of crops, lower prices, a little bit lower prices, perhaps?
Yep, could be. Nothing solves high prices like high prices.
Well, let's just say that it'll give farmers something to talk about, won't it?
There's always something, whether it's the weather, the prices, or the neighbors' fences.
Those are three rural issues that are very real for people, for farmers in Grey County, and for anybody.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, yep. I mean,
good fences make good neighbors.
True. And people are always talking about what's going on here, there, and everywhere. What's happening at the county. And well, let's kick it off with the Housing Action Plan, which has been presented at least to one of the municipal councils in the county, and it's proposing that there be from what I understand of it, a very targeted approach, but a very broad approach right across Grey County for housing.
Yeah, that's right, David. As everyone I'm sure knows, there's a housing, people call it a crisis, an emergency, whatever you want to call it. There is a dearth of housing, affordable housing, for people that need it. Maybe you could argue that it always has been thus to some extent, but the pandemic has really ramped it up because of the migration into the rural parts of Grey County from the large urban centers to our south, Kitchener, Waterloo, the GTA, those kinds of places. So, I mean, the county has a number of initiatives in place to try to even that housing out and make it more affordable, make it more available to people. I mean, one of the things you have to understand, and a lot of people forget, is that government does not build houses. Developers build houses, and what government can do is make things easier, more expedient for those developers to get that housing built, and that's what we're endeavoring to do.
Well, I thought one of the approaches that is in the Housing Action Plan is to have in 2025 at least, a conference of builders and people with property, and a very broad-based conference about housing in Grey County, and that'll be coming forward for county support. But I thought that's an interesting way of approaching the issue, which simply means you're setting the table. You're not.
Well, I mean, that's right. I mean, we don't know at times, right? So if we get everybody around the table then we can be very clear and make it very clear what our challenges are, what our issues are, and whether that's as a landowner, whether it's as a developer, as a government. If we can all agree on what the challenges are, then we can work towards making a priority list and working away at them.
Mm-hmm. Do you see this as something that will be short-term, long-term?
Oh, I expect it'll be a long-term thing. In spite of the speed that some see the growth coming, if you look back over a continuum of 10 or even 50 years, growth takes spurts, and I would suggest we're in one of those spurts right now. But it's going to take 10 years to I would think, fully digest and work through the demand that is on the table right now. So it's nothing is a quick fix. If there was a quick fix, we would have done it long ago. But it's one of those things that they call a wicked problem. There's no clear solution. It's just a matter of rolling your sleeves up and let's get at this and see if we can't work away at the problem to make it better.
You feel the role of the county is to just let people know? You mean, like you say, government doesn't build houses, but what is exactly the role of the county in this scenario? To bring people together?
Well, I think it's just that, David. I mean, developers, they know their business, and every municipality, every government has different priorities, what they want to see and what they want to do, and so that either aids or confounds the developers in their quest to build housing, for instance. And so I think the county's role is to just truly understand what the issues are and what the challenges for those builders are, and try to mitigate those challenges, try to get out of the way. I've often said that government wants to help. Not everybody understands that the government wants to help, but the government truly does, at least Grey County. We want to help. We want to make sure that everyone has a place to have a home. And if there's something we can do or not do, then let's do that and get out of the way, so to speak.
One of the things that I really deeply impressed me in the presentation, at least the one that was made to Owen Sound City Council by Liz Buckton, was the statistics and the depth of the depth of analysis that was present in that issue. You'll get the same. You will have received the same presentation at Grey County Council, but what impressed me was the depth of statistics. The numbers, they weren't numbing. Sometimes you can get baffled by the numbers and get submerged, but no, there was a very clear outline of what's needed, in some ways what the issue is.
Yeah, our staff have done it
by county staff.
Well, our staff, and I'll say it over and over again, and I believe it full-heartedly, we have tremendous staff at the county, and they do a tremendous job of collecting the data and the challenges and working through and putting viable solutions in front of county council. And whether council decides to agree with those recommendations or not, I would suggest they do so at their own peril. But our staff do a tremendous job of digging out those details and making it very clear as to what the challenges are.
And one of the things that I think, if people want to go into and look at the numbers themselves, they're found on the Grey County website in the meeting calendar. You don't have to go searching far. It's in the meeting calendar for the date of the meeting, and that will be October 10th.
Tomorrow.
I believe. Tomorrow from when we're taping, but October 10th.
Yeah.
It's it's all there.
Yeah. No, it is very there. It's a fascinating read too. When you see what's there, it makes it fairly clear, to be honest.
Yeah. The other thing I think that what this is that this is what they call data-driven. It's evidence. It's not something talking through their hat or whistling
No,
up a
it's
storm. This is data. This is information. This is the evidence that you as municipal councillors are being asked to digest and
yeah,
make your decisions on.
it makes it real.
Mhm.
The numbers are there right in front of you, and it's very clear as to what they are.
Yeah, yeah. It's not as if this is something that's being invented, which we've fortunately seen a lot of in the last. Well, not so much here, perhaps, but south of the border.
Yeah,
Facts that are decisions are based on unsupported without supported evidence, and all of a sudden, whoop,
yeah.
there you are. But we've got this evidence about housing, and it's funny. I think housing is one of those key issues. I remember, and I've said this many times before. Alana Murray, who is the former director of education here in Bluewater, said there are two things that people are experts on because they went through it. First is healthcare, and the second is the school system. And I think the third can be housing because we all have some form of housing, some form of shelter. Um, it
Well,
might be might be
that's right.
apartment, might be a tent.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're absolutely right, David. And you know, housing is probably one of the most expensive purchases that
Mhm.
anybody will ever make in their lifetime. And if you're fortunate, like some people, you only do it once, maybe twice in your lifetime, and that's probably enough for some people. But some people will move houses on a regular basis, and they're quite fluid with the system and how it works. But yeah, it well, again, it's a wicked problem, and I don't profess to have any answers other than what you see in the staff report, and I quite heartily agree with everything that's in that report.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what county council does with that report. I mean, after if people are watching the show, that the county council will have met and the decision will be clear. So and maybe just send it back for another report. No,
It's always interesting what county council does with anything.
true, because and I think it should be noted that there is a budget commitment attached to this housing report for an event, but also for certain data, and it's part of the mix.
Well, and people keep telling us over and over again that this is a serious challenge, and we need to fix this, or
Yep.
at least work away at fixing it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things that is also part of this is transit, and transit is how shall I say it's a very very young thing here in Grey County.
Well, it's a moving subject.
Oh, true, true,
Sorry,
true. It's okay.
I
You're
couldn't
allowed.
I couldn't resist.
That's your one pun for the
Okay,
show.
all right, we're done. You're
No,
done.
no, only kidding. Trust me, only kidding. But
No, I
yeah.
mean, it was the transit system that has, well, there's two really that's have been put in place that travel through Gray County. One goes Gray owns no. What is it?
Ghost.
Gray
Gray
Own Sound Transit. Yes, that goes from Owen Sound down Highway 6 to Guelph, and the
Guelph
other one
owns no
is the
transit.
yes, the other one is the GTR that goes
Mm-hmm.
down Highway 6 or down Highway 10 rather. Um, they've both been relatively successful, to be honest. They were slow going at the start, but sort of like a snowball, it starts to build, and it surprises me. Maybe it shouldn't, but it surprises me the number of people that have come to rely on that system to get to work, get to medical appointments, social events, shopping, whatever. But it surprises me the number of people that have come to rely on that system. And the funding was scheduled to run out next March, as you probably know. And we've been lobbying furiously to anyone that will listen that this is a part of the growth plan here in Grey County. We need that system. There's I would suggest maybe a relatively small number of people that need that system. There are lots of people in Grey County that will never use the transit system because we've always been, a car dependent community here in the rural areas of Ontario. But for the portion of the population that need that system, it is vitally important, and it's become important. So we've been trying to tell people, don't let this thing die. We've put a tremendous amount of work. Stephanie Stewart here at the county has done a tremendous job of making this thing work through all kinds of challenges. And so anyway, it's gratifying to hear that the government has come through with some funding, not directly. It's funding that we need to apply for, but I think we can make a really good case that these two systems need support financially. We can't go it on our own here in Grey County in terms of transit. It's, as I said to Rick Byers last night, I talked to MPP Byers last night at an event, and I said, transit is one of those things that it's not, at least traditionally, has not been a rural Ontario municipal responsibility. But we're happy to do it because we see that if we don't do it, it's not going to happen. But we need a partnership with the provincial government because really transit's their lane. So as long as they're willing to partner with us, we're willing to work with you. So it's gratifying to see that at least there's a glimmer of hope here that this system will carry on.
Yeah, and I mean it's been so successful that they had to shut down the stops in down in Dufferin County.
Yeah, in I think it was Shelburne.
Yeah.
The number of folks that were going either onto the GO station in Orangeville to connect to the GO system, and people coming the other direction. And kudos to Dufferin County and Warden Darren White. We sent them a letter and said, primarily it's Dufferin folks that are clogging. I don't want to say clogging, but they're overloading the system at the bottom end there. So if you're willing to chip in, we can keep this thing working for everybody, because otherwise we're going to have to shut your folks off because it's Grey County that's funding this thing. So, our folks come first, so to speak. Anyway, they agreed, and they're throwing some money into the pot, at least till the end of this calendar year, to keep the system going. And that was very heartening. And as they say, I appreciate Dufferin County Council doing that, and particularly Warden Darren White for carrying that request to his council.
Now, just to be clear, the bus still stops in Shelburne, or did
Yes.
they added additional service?
That's right. They added a bus on specifically for that Shelburne to Orangeville stretch.
Right. So all of a sudden, when it crosses Grey County lines, it's express to Orangeville.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, there is a stop in Shelburne, but it's not overloaded at Shelburne because this extra bus has taken on the overflow, so to speak.
Yeah.
So when there's a will, there's a way.
Actually, it's an old way because that's what used to happen on the railroads. When a passenger train was full, they added a section.
Yep.
So that's what you did. You added a section.
They used to do that with the bus system too. When I was still driving bus, we used to do some contract work for Greyhound, and they would station us, set us in either at the Bay Street Terminal in Toronto or somewhere. A couple times I even spotted in Owen Sound, and I would follow the regular line run down into Toronto in case the bus overflowed, and so that was what we did.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you have firsthand experience as a bus driver.
Yeah, I drove on and off charter bus for better part of 30 years.
My goodness, you man of many talents. I could say that. Well, if when your political career is over, you've got to get something lined up.
Oh, I don't know. I always enjoyed it, but I don't know whether I go back to it or not. The hours are pretty tough.
They are.
But I enjoyed it. It was fun, and we drove. I started driving for Bob Fettis in Mount Forest, actually, Fettis Tours, and we went all over North America. It's a great job for anybody young that's not married, no family, and no commitments at home. It's just like long distance trucking. tip your head up and down, and they'll shoot you out the door. It was fun. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, let's move on a little bit to go back to planning. That there was a special meeting in the summer, which I would say not unprecedented, but unusual, and that was a joint closed meeting of all of the county plus the municipal councils across Grey County.
Yeah.
And the subject, when it was finally disclosed, had to do with planning. And can you explain exactly what the proposal was?
Well, the initiative's being called the Shared Services Planning Initiative, and I'll maybe go back to what the genesis was for this idea, and I'll use Southgate as an example. Because of the unprecedented number of growth or volume of growth here in Southgate, our planning department was absolutely overwhelmed. And at the same time, we were having an extremely difficult time to try to recruit planners for Southgate. So we turned to the county for some help, and they did a great job of helping us. And the shortage of planners isn't just in Southgate, it's southern Ontario, if not right across the country, really. And so there was the idea was formed, well, is there a better way to do this planning thing? Because some municipalities, they use contractors. Other municipalities have in-house planning departments. Some models across Ontario, some models will just use a single tier level of planning, or a county, if you want to call it, or a regional planning department. So the idea was, well, let's have a look at this thing. But as you can understand, any changes will affect people, employees, staff. And we didn't want staff to think, well, where do I fit into this plan, and what could happen to my job? Let's be honest. And we didn't want to cause that anxiety to anybody's staff across the county. So we thought, let's bring everybody together in closed session so that everybody gets the same information at the same time. And by having it in closed session, we could talk about positions without having people that are currently in those positions feeling threatened or anxious about their job. And that was very important to me, that we did not cause undue stress with our staff, because as I say often, without our staff, we're nothing. So that's what, in a nutshell, is what that was about. So there was lots of discussion, and then so it was put back to the lower tiers to say to their own staff and to their own people, this is a proposal that's being talked about. What are your concerns? What are your questions? And we'll turn that all back to the county planning department for them to suss through all those questions. And then in November, I think it's late November, county staff plan to bring a report to county council as to, okay, here's all the questions, here's all the possibilities, this is what we think might work. So that's a long way of saying that it was really initiated by the lower tier municipalities. It wasn't the county that said, hey, you guys, let's, out of the blue, say, hey, let's change up how we do planning in Grey County. It was the lower tiers that went to the county and said, could you sort of facilitate this? And it's also very important to understand that the proposal as it stands so far, at least in its loose form so far, is that all the lower tiers will retain the decision-making powers that they currently have now. There is no talk, and never has been any talk, and probably won't be any talk, of the county actually making the decisions for, again, an example like Southgate. Southgate will still retain the decision ability and authority.
And I think a lot of that is already in place. I think of West Grey, and the county does planning with the exception of Durham and areas to the east of Hanover,
Yeah, the urban
the
centers.
urban
Well,
areas.
West
But
Gray still makes those planning
but
decisions.
that was my next statement: is that the West, when the final decisions are made, they are actually made through input through West Grey,
Yes.
and are the decisions are made by West Grey Council.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important distinction to make. Unlike regional government, which has been a part of other parts of Ontario for decades, who have regional planning departments and regional planning solutions,
Right. Right.
that's not what's being raised here.
No. Each municipality, if, for instance, again, like Southgate, we have our official plan here in Southgate. We would still continue to have that official plan on our own zoning bylaws, and any planning applications or decisions would be judged against those two documents.
Mhm.
Um, so it's a matter of trying to level out the workload, let me put it that way, and try to ensure that every application, no matter where it is in the county, is given the same level of due diligence and the same level of professionalism that our planning staff, have right across the county. Um, the other interesting piece, and I guess it's rather ironic, uh, in the interim, Southgate, for the most part, we've kind of solved our planning staff issue here in the township, which is kind of ironic because that there was a time where I thought, my God, we're never going to get through all this stuff because we just didn't have the staff. But now we seem to have, but having said that, we have the staffs currently, it still remains precarious for a small municipality because we just don't have the bench strength that if, one of our key people either resigns, retires, moves on, whatever, that leaves a huge gaping hole in our staff. Whereas if you had, a county planning department, you have that bench strength so that you can always backfill those positions very readily. And there's the mentorship piece too. If you're working in a small municipality typically, and you're it, there's nobody to go with a question and say, well, what about? Because as anybody that has dealt with the planning department will know, every application is different. There's always a nuance somewhere that application is a little bit different than the last one and the last one and the last one. So in my mind, I think there's potential to make this work and make it very well, work very well, but time will tell. We'll see what the lower tiers think.
One of the issues that I have talked about with your colleagues across the county, not all of them by any manner of means, is which you alluded to, is the HR function. And that is the shortage of experienced municipal staff and of planners. And planners are a regulated profession. I believe that there is a college that regulates their work, and they are
Yep.
held to professional standards. And that is true of most of the professions that are involved in municipal governance, from clerk treasurers to HR staff to the list is quite long.
Mm-hmm.
But what about encouraging the province to open the tap a little bit around education? I mean, everybody has to start somewhere. And it's not just doctors that are in a shortage. We've got a shortage of municipal staff
Yeah. No,
who are
that
creating the environment which we live in.
no, you're absolutely right, David. There is a shortage of staff generally, and it matters not what industry you're working in. There seems to be a general shortage because some would say I'm sort of on the tail end of the baby boomers, so to speak, and we're we're getting long in the tooth, so we're saying enough's enough. And again, like the pandemic kind of supercharged that as well. So I think in time, the problem will solve itself. But what do we do in the interim is the question, right? And so I think something like what we've just been talking about, the Shared Services Planning Department, I think something like that could work very well, because there are lots of municipalities in the province that, I mean, Oxford is for one. They have a single level of planning authority in the county, and by all accounts, it seems to be working very well. Because when it comes to expertise of knowing the nuances of their lower tiers, they're able to get that done.
Sure. Well, Brian, let's take a quick break, because planning is a very, very deep, steep subject. So we got to give people at least 90 seconds rest. And hey, we got more to talk about.
Sure.
I'm David Shearman. This is Politically Speaking. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
You're watching Rogers TV.
Here are 3 reasons why your social strategies should include Rogers TV. Reason number 1 is we have hyper-local audiences. The community TV channel gives you a chance to engage with people where you live, so you really get to know your neighbors and they get to know you. Reason number 2 is we can help diversify your distribution. With social media, it's really important to be able to have a wider audience, and Rogers TV can actually help complement your online presence by delivering to a different audience. And it's actually really easy to repurpose your existing content or to just create new material specifically tailored for community TV. And finally, reason number 3 is we can help enhance your credibility and your trust. And by aligning your brand with Rogers TV, you can tap into that trust that viewers have. This can boost your reputation, especially among viewers who favor local businesses and value community involvement. 1, 2, 3. It's that easy to build your local audience with Rogers TV.
Public transit, garbage pickup, parks and recreation programs, snow removal on your street. How can you stay informed about these and other important local services? Tune to City Council coverage on Rogers TV. See your community leaders at work on Rogers TV City Council coverage.
Hi, and welcome back to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest is Warden Brian Milne of Grey County, and we've been talking about all kinds of things, from planning to farms to transit. We're not done yet. Lots of stuff to talk about, Brian.
Betcha. Let's get at it.
Well, speaking of contentious issues, have you heard anything about South Bruce Grey Hospital and the Durham Hospital?
Oh, just what you'd notice. Yeah, there's lots of talk. But as we were saying off screen there, not a lot of progress, at least for what I've seen anyway. Again, I was talking to MPP Byers last night at another event, and he told me that he is meeting with the board, or at least the leadership, rather, I should say, of South Bruce, in the coming days to see, what is going on. Is there any movement? Is there any ideas as to what can be done? Because the community of Durham is unsettled, distressed, and really, I think, getting a little bit downhearted because nothing seems to be going on. And it's an important issue, and the community wants their hospital back. The longer this goes on, the bigger the challenge is to staff that hospital. The professional staff move on to other employment opportunities. The doctors get disheartened because they have no hospital to admit people to. In fact, I heard a story just a couple days ago that there was a resident of Rockwood Terrace, the long-term care facility in Durham. The patient needed a procedure done. Normally, it would have been like a 2-minute drive across town to the Durham hospital. The doctor would have dealt with whatever the issue was, and the patient would have moved back to Rockwood. The staff at Rockwood were told, well, no, the patient will have to go to Walkerton now to see a doctor, but you have to take the patient to the Durham hospital first. That doctor will look at the patient. Then they will call EMS to transfer the patient from Durham Hospital to the Walkerton Hospital for the procedure to take place. Then the patient has to arrange their own transportation to get from the Walkerton Hospital back to the Durham long-term care facility at Rockwood. It just makes one scratch one's head and say, does anybody even know what's going on? It just, the healthcare system, and it's not just Durham. The healthcare system is, we talked about the housing thing being a crisis. Well, that is nothing compared to what's going on in the healthcare industry. There are doctors, or rather, there are hospitals right across the province that are on the verge of bankruptcy, literally not being able to meet payroll if this government does not move soon to do something to help these hospitals out. And I mean, that's not just directly Durham, that includes Durham. So I really, other than that, Dave, I really haven't got any new news, but it's becoming very distressing. Just the absolute silence. And I'd like to believe that it's because the government of Ontario has their head down and working on the problem, but I don't hold my breath for that to happen.
You know, I've heard similar sentiments in other circles. It's a, as you said, it's a wicked issue. It is a very wicked issue, and unfortunately, people are getting lost in the system. And I know down in Durham where I work, it's the same is true. People are not happy. They're disturbed. I've heard anecdotally of in fact, the person told me they had a friend who was very sick. They took them to the hospital at 4:30 in the afternoon, and they were told, well, you'll have to leave at 5 o'clock. And they said, no, we're here. You figure it out. And they were the person was finally let go or discharged about 7. But what is this? A grocery store?
Well, you anybody that has a medical emergency shouldn't be looking at their watch saying, well, golly, I can't have this now because the emerge is closed.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to wait for, a few hours or whatever.
Yeah.
No. Now, to be clear, and I don't want to be alarming anybody, because the EMS system, the county EMS system, paramedics, they're doing a tremendous job of looking after folks, but they can only work within the parameters of what they've been given, right? So to say they're frustrated as well, it would be an understatement. The story I just related about moving the patient hither and fro, that was not an EMS issue. That was the issue of what hospital and where and catchment areas and all that kind of stuff. So they have to work within the bounds of the rules they're given as well. So I want to reassure people that if you do have a 911 emergency, the paramedics will be there like they always have been. But the hospital system, it's precarious. It is very precarious, and I wish more people would understand just how serious this is right across the province. It's not just Durham. And I don't say that there's hospitals that are in danger of not meeting payroll to be alarmist, but that's a very real scenario.
Yeah. And part of that is that hospitals are required to have balanced budgets.
Yep.
They cannot. It's not like municipalities.
Exactly.
And the primary source of funding is the province.
Absolutely. Now, in the HSAW agreement that every hospital corporation signs with the province to supply, hospital services, there is there is a section in there where the hospital can ask for a waiver from that balanced budget requirement. And probably 75% of the hospitals in Ontario this year actually applied for that waiver, because there's no way they're millions of dollars off of anywhere near a balanced budget. So the province is saying, okay, well, what if you chop this, 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 and this, or come back to us with a plan of how you're going to balance your budget? Well, sure, I can balance the budget if we stop surgery, if we, stop doing any number of services. But to balance that budget, I need to cut that service, but I need you to keep sending me the money that you were funding that service with. Yeah, I can balance that budget this year, but what about next year and the year after? And at some point, do you say, well, we're not doing anything here, we just slam the door? Boy, I hope it doesn't come to that. But as I say, I think we're starting to see the thin edge of the wedge with what's going on in Durham. I have no insight and no authority to read the minutes of the South Bruce Health Corporation, but I just wonder, is that's what's going on? They are just absolutely strapped for budget, and maybe they had no choice. They had to close Durham. I don't know. But again, that would be predicated on the province continuing to send them the money that they were funding the Durham Hospital with to balance up all the other stuff over, to the west of us. I don't know, but I just wonder if that's what was going on.
You're not the first person I've heard who've said it's a wicked problem, but it's also a complicated problem. It's based in hospital finances.
It's very complicated,
and not issues of employment. Although that's part of it.
That's part of it.
It really has to do with balancing of hospital budgets, which, the government had the bill to reduce salaries or freeze salaries at 1% for increases, but that didn't work.
Nope. They were court ordered to turn that around.
That's right.
And they had to fund the backlog, but they only funded it with 75-cent dollars. So the government funds the 75% of that employment bill, if you want to call it that, but the hospital itself had to make up the other 20 or 25%. And where does that come from? Well, it's coming out of the funding that's coming from the province, but it's not enough. And around we go. Oh, it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. And whoever designed this system, if there was a designer, I hope they've left the country, because, this is awful. It's just awful.
Well, having been around long enough before healthcare was universal, and you're too young for this.
Oh, far too young.
But I know what it was like, and it was a very, very, very different, not necessarily better, but a very different healthcare system we had. Very different.
Yeah, it was essentially private healthcare, was it not?
Well, it was. It was. Yeah. But I also know doctors. I remember one doctor's widow telling me that when her husband died prematurely, she was left basically broke because of his accounts outstanding. Everyone said, "Oh, you're married to a doctor, you'll be fine." No, she was broke because here was her husband would do all kinds of things and bill, but never get paid. So,
yep.
And what this did was it created a system which guaranteed payment. But anyway, it's a long, long story. Actually, it's a fascinating study of Canadian history. If anyone's ever interested, it's how we got where we are. It'll drive you nuts. It'll make you mad, but it'll also say, "Hey, we did some things that were pretty good."
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Well, speaking of paramedics, the new paramedic base in Durham has. I'm not sure whether it's the paramedic base or the police the police station that's going up, but I'm seeing lots of concrete blocks and lots of bulldozers moving dirt and.
Yeah, I was just by there the other day, and I see there's walls coming out of the ground.
Yep.
I think that's the police station. I don't believe they've actually started on the paramedic station yet, but contract has been let. So it's good to see that that's coming ahead. And you had asked me earlier if I had something I wanted to talk about, and actually related to the paramedics, I wanted to say that the SOS mobile team that you're well aware of, and maybe you were coming to this anyway, Dave, but I'm going to say it anyway now. So
go right ahead.
They received the Ontario Health System Quality and Innovation Award for Population Health. I had to read that because I didn't want to screw that up, but that is very important. That SOS team, I can't say enough about them. It's just a model for various organizations to come together. They see a need, they come together, and it's just working remarkably. We see very, very improved health outcomes from marginalized people in the community, and it is reducing emergency room runs for the paramedics. People are getting their medications. People are having better health outcomes. It's a tremendous system, and I've said it before too. Our director of paramedic services, Kevin McNabb, a good Durham boy. He's been doing a really good job for the county, and I'm so proud of that program. It works really well, and it's saving lives. It really is. Yeah, I could go on, but I won't.
Well, I've had the opportunity to meet and have extended conversations with the SOS staff. I'm impressed. They've got a vision for what they want to do. Yep. They're doing it. Dare I say it, they're using our classic Grey Bruce solution where things are based on relationships, and we work together because we're in relationship to each other, and we're stronger and better together.
Together we're stronger, absolutely.
And they're making it work, and people are, as one of them told me, she said, if that person lives one more day, we've succeeded.
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely. Yep.
It's a good program. And the other thing is that and they have said this to me as well, is that they'll go to conferences or they'll go to meetings, and people services in larger centers want to know all about SOS.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Because this is not something that's done in other centers where we've pioneered something here in Grey Bruce.
I was just in Blue Mountains last week now, I guess it was. The Paramedic Chiefs of Ontario had their annual gala awards event, and it was co-hosted by Grey County, Bruce County, Simcoe, and Dufferin. And there was paramedics there from right across the province. And I know Kevin spent a big part of his night talking to other paramedics about what we're doing here with the SOS program.
Yeah. Now, my next question is, Warden, I understand that the SOS program is only funded 4 days a week. Are we going to see it go to 7?
I would certainly like it to. I suspect and I hope that when Kevin submits his budget for his department, the paramedics, it will reflect the 7-day funding, and then it'll be up to myself and anybody that thinks the SOS program is well worth funding to make sure that we make that pitch to the rest of the council and it makes it through the budget process. Now, that said, it's going to be competing with transit, housing, roads, other stuff that the county needs and should be doing. So we'll see where it ends up. But, if there was ever a program that justified being fully funded, that would be one. So we'll see. It'll be a loud scrap, I can tell you that, if anybody wants to tell me that we shouldn't do it. But anyway, we'll see what happens.
All right. Vote early, vote often is the
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It is a good program. It's people live because of it. I think that's
the fact that there's so many organizations that are working together to make this thing work. Mm-hmm. It just speaks volumes about how valuable it is to the community.
Yeah, it is. And the cool part for me is that if they don't have a solution or an answer, they can reach across the table and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?"
Yep.
Or I know somebody who can help out about that, and or say to someone who comes in, "Hey, I don't have the answer, but I'll tell you, here's somebody who does, and I'll see if I can get them to come down here next time we're here."
Yep. Yeah, there's such a vast wealth of knowledge in that group that they're able to, give and take and come and go, and it works.
Yeah.
The story, it's not funny, but it's kind of funny, I guess. One of one of the ways the program kind of got off the ground was socks.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I maybe talked about this before, I forget now, but Kevin tells me, a lot of the relationships with some of the marginalized people in our community started off by, "Hey, do you need a pair of socks? Here's a pair of socks." And away they go. Pair of socks maybe doesn't mean a lot to you and me, Dave, but to some people, a new pair of warm socks in November or this time of year, that's the start of a pretty good relationship. So little steps,
Yeah.
we'll get there.
Building relationships is what
Absolutely.
with the people you're serving is absolutely critical. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, it's a fascinating study, and I'm quite sure there'll be lots of studies done about the SOS program. That's for sure.
Yep.
Well, let's move on to another service that the county does, and that's Rockwood Terrace. Where's that now? That's kind of up beyond the hill, so I don't see it when I'm down in Durham. But it's things going along well.
Things are going along really well. I mean, it's been a really nice fall for construction. Well, for a lot of things, really. But yeah, the construction's coming along really nicely. The current Rockwood actually just celebrated their 40th anniversary. We had a little bit of a birthday party down there last Friday. Karen Krause and all her staff there at Rockwood put on a lovely little noontime birthday party. So when I was at that event, I took the opportunity to drive around on the new extension of Rock Street and South Street where they meet. I don't know whether I was supposed to be in there or not. Don't tell anybody. I'm not sure whether I was supposed to drive in or not, but I did anyway. And yeah, it's amazing how big the building looks when you actually see the foundation and the basement walls laid out on the ground. Boy, it's going to be something. I'm really excited to see that happen, and the staff are really excited, and the residents of as I say, the current Rockwood, they're really excited too to get moved into the new building. I mean, that's not going to be for a couple of years now, but still, just to see it come out of the ground, like the paramedic station and the police station, it's pretty exciting.
For sure, it's going to be a really needed service for that part of the county.
Undoubtedly, yeah. There's a lot of demand for long-term care.
Yep.
Yeah. I found, actually, interesting little story. I found a picture here. Again, it was in the bin of pictures that came off the walls of my great uncle's home when he passed away. There's a picture of the sod turning of the original Rockwood 40 years ago. It happened in, I think it was November or December. The ground was frozen. So Carol Lawrence at the time, who was the chair of the building committee, she saw, I don't know, nobody seems to know where she found this box of dirt. But anyway, she found a box of dirt. And it was supposed to be outside, but it was a blustery day. So they moved to the arena in Durham, and they had the actual official sod turning in the lobby of the arena in Durham. And as I say, my Uncle Farquhar was there. There was a minister from the government at the time, provincial government at the time. There was a minister there. I don't know the name of all these folks that were in the picture. Lois Uderstead was there. I think she was maybe the warden at the time. I'm not certain. And a number of Durham officials were there. So it was kind of a neat picture to see. I took it up to the county, and they took it out to Grey Roots, and they're endeavoring to identify everybody that's in the picture. So, because I certainly didn't know them all, but I thought it was kind of ironic that I found that picture just about the time we were having the sod turning for the new Rockwood.
Well, it goes to show you never know where history will be found.
That's right. It's all around us.
Yeah. Who was the premier at that time? That would have been Robarts?
I think it would be Robarts, yes.
John Robarts.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, well. When did Bill Davis become premier? 72?
Yeah, because John Robarts was the premier during Expo.
Yeah. So I think it might have been Davis, because this would have been 1984.
Yes, it would have been Bill Davis.
Yeah. I honestly, I can't remember the name of the minister. It wasn't, there was no Ministry of Long-Term Care at that time. Probably was Minister of Health, and I can't remember his name.
Matt Diamond?
That doesn't sound right. Darcy something? McHugh?
Oh, Darcy McHugh, yes.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Not certain.
Hey, in those days, ministries and ministers changed us more often than they do now.
Yeah, Mr. Davis moved them around. That's how he kept everybody happy by keeping everybody guessing.
Well, speaking of provincial politics, you went to AMO.
I did. Yep.
And did you come back with any revelations or epiphanies or?
No,
Okay.
I don't get epiphanies. Sorry. But I did. It was a very good conference. I enjoyed it. But I have to say, when you're the warden, I had between county, Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, and Southgate, I think I had 14 delegations. And so I really didn't see a lot of the conference, to be honest, because you're constantly moving back and forth to these delegations and making sure you're the county is well represented at all of those. And so, but I did attend a few of the sessions, and they're always very informative. I have to admit that I don't attend for a number of years now. I haven't attended the Bear Pit session, which is where they line the ministers all up on the stage and people come to the microphones and ask questions because, number one, the questions tend to be localized. Everybody's got a problem that they want fixed, and they think they're going to speak to the minister on the stage and embarrass him or her, and they're going to say, well, we'll fix your problem. That's never going to happen. And the answers that come from the stage are so canned that you think, why are we even here? This is such a waste of time. But that's just my opinion. So I just stopped going to that Bear Pit session because it just irritates the heck out of me. I'd far sooner, and I have done this, cornered a minister. They walk the corridors like everybody else. And, if you catch a minister just at the right time, you can get a few minutes of their time and a bit of their ear. And I found that's a far more effective way. Again, it's building relationships, right? The minister may or may not have heard of your issue, but they'll say, well, so-and-so staff member, you look into that. So you get that staff member's information, contact information, and you start building a relationship there. And
with that, Brian, I gotta say we're out of time and we gotta go. So thank you.
Thank you.
Today, it's a pleasure, always a pleasure to have you on Politically Speaking. And you'll be back.
I'm looking forward to it, David. It's always a pleasure to be on your show. I love it. Thank you.
All right. And friends, thank you for being a part of Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman, and yes, we'll talk again.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Sports fans know Sundays are for football. That's why you need NFL Sunday Ticket. With NFL Sunday Ticket, Rogers customers get every live game, every Sunday afternoon, all season long. Follow your favorite teams and players live in HD. Order